And even though it seems like, particularly as you get up to higher levels in an organization, as a senior manager, you'd think, well, you shouldn't be doing any routine work or shouldn't be doing any problem solving. The problem is each one of those has a different degree of feedback or reinforcement for us, right? The routine work, you get lots of really small amount of reinforcement, but you get a good quantity of it, right? So that's a certain level of feedback. Troubleshooting is like a medium level of feedback, right? When you finally figure out, the computer hasn't worked for a day, and now I finally figure out what happened. I need to plug it in, or the mouse is plugged into the wrong port, whatever it is, and it's working. Like that's on the next level. And then when the project work is done, where you're like Nathan's project, where you'd be working on that and you finally deliver it to the client, that's a whole different level.
Welcome back to the Intelligent Conversations podcast. Today, I have the honor to learn from Dr. Kevin Gazzara. Kevin has been at Intel in managing and in leadership positions for over 18 years. He also is an entrepreneur and executive coach for over 15 plus years. He developed the Task Quotient Assessment tool for determining employee motivation, satisfaction, and retention. This assessment is based on his doctoral dissertation. This episode was fantastic. I got to learn quite a bit from Dr. Gazzara, and he shared kind of how he developed this test and some of the qualities and some of the things he looks for when developing future leaders and leaders of today. I don't want to spoil any of the rest of the show. I know I say that a lot, but let's welcome Dr. Kevin Gazzara to the show. Yeah, and positive intelligence. Yeah, I've been reading up on that stuff all day today. So that's
okay.
And then, and yesterday as well. I like to come in a little bit prepared.
Sure. Well, I saw that you took the assessments, right?
I took the assessments today.
Okay.
And they're very insightful. I have to say that. So the one you referred to, the positive intelligence one, that one was very interesting. So there's like a level of where your mind's just essentially in survival mode.
Right.
And then there's one where you're actually in thriving mode. I actually tested pretty low in there. I was in the survival category. I was at 50, almost 50-50 even.
That's normal, by the way. It's usually 40 to 60 is what we see people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is, just initially off the bat?
Well, I don't think we do a good job. I think we spend most of our time as humans focusing externally and not internally. One, because it's easier. And I don't think we do the necessary hard work for ourselves. And because we don't do that, we end up at a 40 to 60 range, right? And those that really do a lot of deeper reflection, mindfulness, meditation, carving out the things to build themselves as a brand will score higher. And I think over the years as well, as you get more experience, that contributes as well. So
this is just my guess. I think also just you start getting more confident as well, like just in your skills and what you're able to do. Because I took the saboteur assessment immediately after that, because I'm like, wait, I got to figure this out. And I tested pretty high in kind of the hyper competitiveness and just the
hyperachiever probably comes up real high.
Yeah, the hyperachiever. Yeah, that's what it was. And then just that. And then there's a few other things too that I was like, I never thought about that. And then I like how it dives into some of the like details of maybe the causes and like the root cause, and help you become self-aware of.
Yeah, I did a good portion of my doctoral research was around human motivation and engagement. So I did a lot of work on emotional intelligence. And if you've read anything by Daniel Goleman, he was one of the founders. He's the guy that came up with emotional intelligence concept. He did that. He's out of Rutgers in the 90s. And I've always found that fascinating. The challenge is that emotional intelligence is much more about it's more descriptive than prescriptive. And essentially what Shirzad has done with the positive intelligence book is he's made it prescriptive. And that's the biggest difference. He's really very much of an aggregator more than anything else. He's taken a lot of work done by Richard Boyatzis and Daniel Rock and Gardner and Goldman, and he's really put it together in an operating system that allows you to be successful for that. So,
yeah, I like the word operating system. Sometimes I like to tinker with just code in my free time. And
so what would you like? We could talk about PQ, positive intelligence. We could talk about the task quotient. We could talk about both. You tell me.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I'm just more fascinated in like kind of how you, I guess, got to like how you kind of developed your thesis and how you developed kind of your concept around all this, because you offer training and all that, correct? Like,
yeah,
and help improve people's like positive, yeah. You help improve.
So the idea is we talk about it as building your brand, as your own personal brand, right? So we offer actually one of the words we don't use training. We use development more than anything else. So we do coaching, we do mentoring, we do consulting, but the one thing that we don't do is we don't do training, because training has a negative connotation where it's an it's a cost. And really what we try to do is we try to do what we call active learning. And that really is where you're applying as you're learning so that it sticks and you're getting the work done, rather than, normal. I've taken dozens and dozens of training classes, and most of them are incredibly insightful and good, and you leave with a workbook and you stick on your shelf and you never do anything with it. The challenge is most of them don't apply it instantaneously, and because you're not applying it and you're not coming up with an action plan, it doesn't stick. So we've essentially created a process we call the GALE process, guided and applied integrated learning, so that it can stick. And it's just a series of touch points that you have to do on a regular basis. I can talk about that a little bit as well if that's of interest.
No, I'm happy to dive into that as well.
So here's a suggestion. Why don't we? Let me talk a little. I'll give you a little bit of my background, kind of the history of how I got to develop my assessment, which is the task quotient, and then I'll tell you what that has spawned into, which is PQ and the GALE system and everything else.
No, I'd love to hear more about that. That would be great.
Okay, sure, good.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I don't know if you know yet, we're already recording, so
I didn't know that.
So, no, some of the stuff you've been saying already is great. I should have probably mentioned that at the beginning. I like to keep it pretty casual.
Okay.
And just kind of like just talk. If it's too script, like it's kind of balancing, right? You want to balance the script and then also balance just conversation.
Sure.
Is kind of my approach. But yeah, I mean, if you want to share a little bit of your background, I know you worked at Intel for a bit, and then you had a few jobs before that, doing like stuff with products and manufacturing.
Yeah.
And then you decided to leave all that, and then you started your own thing.
Right.
Kind of tell me how you all of a sudden moved from there to now you're doing your own thing.
It was planned. I had a 10-year plan. My personal goal was I wanted to retire when I was 50. So I was fortunate to be able to do that. I actually left when I was 51. And I wanted to leave the corporate world and just go give back everything that I had done. But I spent my first 28 years in the corporate world. I spent 10 years at a company called Transamerica de Laval, which became IMO Industries. Did heavy rotating equipment, compressors, steam turbines, all custom kind of stuff.
Cool.
My background is in engineering and business. And then I did my MBA in management before I went off and did all my doctoral work in organizational leadership. But I got a lot of, as a product manager, I was a general manager. I set up different organizations, and that was fantastic. But my passion back in the 80s was computers and video, so So when I found out that I was living right outside of Trenton, New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, and when I found out Intel had bought the digital video interactive technology from RCA Labs, and this was in 1988, and when my passion was around doing video, learning about computers, so I was very much kind of a tech nerd. And when I found out that you could actually do computers and video together, I said, man, I got to have that job. So RCA Labs was about 29 miles from my house. And they had an ad in the Philadelphia Inquirer. That's the way you used to get jobs back then. You used to look in the newspaper. And,
I can't imagine that.
I said, and the ad was written for me. They're looking for a product manager that, had done startups, had 10 years of experience, engineering undergrad, MBA. It's like I wrote this ad for myself. And so I sent them a resume because I knew they get 1,000 resumes. And I booked myself on a flight to San Francisco. And I landed in San Francisco airport and called Intel because they were hiring out of California for a division they had just bought in Princeton. And I said, man, I know you're going to get 1,000 resumes for this, but I'm the right guy. So I said, I bought a ticket here in San Francisco airport. I have an open ticket for the way back. And if you don't interview me, I'm going to come and sit in your lobby. And the recruiter thought I was a little bit nuts, but he was good enough and said, hey, okay, you're on. Come down tomorrow at 4:00 and I'll interview you. And so I drove down to Intel down in Santa Clara. Worst interview of my life. Couldn't have gone more terrible because the recruiter had only hired chip designers. And I was applying for a product manager position. So he had never hired a product manager, only chip designers. But he did do one thing. The end of the interview, he picked up the phone and he called the general manager back in Princeton and said, hey, there's a guy that lives there, but he flew out here and I didn't pay for him. So I didn't tell him to come out there.
Yeah, there's no
he just showed up unannounced. And here's all his background. Do you still want to talk to him? And of course the GM started yelling at him. At least this is what the GM told me after they hired me. It's yeah, of course he's got everything that we want in there. So yeah, so send him our way. And I eventually, interviewed back in Princeton and they hired me and I had just a fantastic 18-year career there. Started as a product. I actually started as a product marketing engineer. Then I became the product manager, then the ops manager, and then the GM for the group organization. But Intel has every 7 years, they give you a sabbatical, so after my first 7 years there, doing the technical side and managing software and hardware design teams and marketing and product teams. Mm-hmm. I went on sabbatical and I had, one of the requirements for Intel when you get to a certain grade level was you had to teach internally for 40 hours, right? So I was doing the training and teaching and I said, man, I really love this. The guy that was managing Intel University for the world said, hey, I've seen you teach. I know you have a passion for this. I need somebody to manage Intel U here in Arizona, which was about, 15,000 people at the time. So it was a nice size site. Would you be interested to kind of come over to the dark side, move over from the technical side into the HR land? So I did that and I managed Intel U and management and leadership development for my last 10 years that I was there. And we used to do the programs I managed, which was first and midline level training. We used to do 2,600 managers a year in 10 different countries. Used to train them. And when I had retired in 2007, we had just finished training our 40,000th manager. So I got pretty good at that.
Pretty good at it.
Yeah. And what I wanted to do was I had a great mentor, and a great coach at Intel, and I had a 10-year plan. We used to meet on a monthly basis, and the idea was when I hit 50, that if I wanted to retire, that I'd have the ability to do that. My goal was to go and be an entrepreneur and go help smaller companies that, didn't have $10 million budgets to develop their leaders. And that's what, so in 2007, I took two of my colleagues and we started up Magna Leadership Solutions. Every year has been better than the last. And it's been a fantastic run. And we've been able to work with tons and tons of small and medium-sized organizations. We do a lot of executive coaching to coach, senior managers. And so it's been fantastic.
Okay. Sorry, I just had a question right when you finished that. So how do you go about like identifying maybe potential executives and maybe like within the organization? Because obviously, right, you want to train the current ones, but also they're going to retire one day and you're going to need a new batch. So how do you, I guess, train those executives to identify the next generation of executives?
So succession planning, right? So, that's what we used to call it Intel, right? So you do succession planning. And I think what you do is you have to look for a whole series of things. I wish there was, one kind of magic bullet that you can have for that, but there isn't. The things that I look for when I hired people, and both to kind of succeed me as well as to kind of move up through the organization, is I wanted to see if they were continuous learners, right? That was probably the foundational piece. I didn't really care so much about their GPAs or whatever, but if they had this passion for learning, and they were diggers, right? That they could dig into something, you could just give it something, and they would go into that.
Yeah.
That was the first thing. I wanted persistence. And then the other thing is I really wanted them, and we did a lot of research in our firm, that we found out that if you were a great communicator, your ability to lead was significantly better. So that's the real, if I could give your listeners one tip, is learn to communicate well, right? And the only way you can do it is through lots and lots of practice. You can take that feedback, and if you're a good communicator, you're going to be viewed as a better leader. So it's really that kind of that persistence, the ability to learn, willingness to work together as a team. Those are the people that you want, to kind of move up in an organization.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just had a thought, and I want to add this to the communication. It's not just speaking as well. I would say written communication as well as, oh my gosh, I just went blank on the other one. There's another one.
Well, written and
verbal, I think, are the two important ones. Oh, I'll remember it. I'll probably be sleeping tonight and remember it. But I know there's another form that's out there. But anyway, I think it's also important to do that as well. Listen, I guess here it is. It's listening / reading. I think if you can read, write, and speak well, then that'll help you be an effective communicator, because reading also means listening is how you take in information and, and eventually hopefully make decisions based off that. And then verbal is what you and I are doing. We're just talking.
Right.
And then written is kind of maybe those texts you send, the emails, all that. And I think you got to be.
Well, I'll give you and your listeners my 2 or 3 golden nuggets here for communication, because we teach a whole program called Communicating and Coaching with Purpose. Right, all of our programs are with purpose. Because obviously, if they have to be purposeful as opposed to just learning. So I'll give you 2 tips that I think would be incredibly valuable. So the first tip is, when you are communicating, we did a study of about 1,200 managers and leaders on this. We found out that the best managers and leaders had 3 elements in their communication. It had a quantity, it had a quality, and it had a pace, not a time. Right. So the managers, when they're making requests of you, really setting up clear expectations, the ones that had quantity, quality, and pace were the ones that were viewed and got higher ratings as leaders. And as any one of those 3 dropped off, their leadership score of how people rated them were were much lower. So, like, for example, rather than saying, I'd have managers that were not ideal at this, that I worked with in many different organizations. They'd say, hey, I need the report by the end of the quarter. Okay, ready to go. It's like, okay, so what's the report, right? So I need all of the training numbers for for this quarter. For the world? Oh, no, just the US. Okay, so you want it for the US, right? And you want it for, June to September, whatever that date is, right? So that's the quantity, right? Which is the report focused on that. And then what's the quality measurement? Do you want me to check this with the other systems? Because the HR system and the training systems are too different, and sometimes they're off. Would you like that checked? Oh, yes, of course. Right. And so we have 3 reports. You have 3 areas to focus on. How about I give you drafts of each area, 1 a month for the next 3 months. And then that way, if it's not doesn't meet your expectation, we can make a change. And they'd say, yeah, right. So a lot of times you just have to manage your manager. So the quantity, the quality, usually the quality is missing. And the key is the pace, right? That rather than saying at the end of the quarter, you need to have the milestones built in. And that way, when you check with the individual, you're managing them, you're managing the task and not micromanaging, which most people hate because they don't set a pace at the front. So what ends up happening is the micromanagers are constantly checking in, like, Kevin, how are you doing on that report? It's like, I'm working on it, right? Right. And it just becomes annoying to me and annoying to the manager. So set up the kind of check-in points ahead of time. So that way, the end of the month, I know you're going to come in and check on me. So that's the first thing for the communication is just build those 3 things, evaluate yourself. And a lot of times, if you don't have a manager that works really well doing this, sometimes you have to manage your manager and help them be successful.
Thank you for sharing that. No, that's
easy. Nobody does it. That's the other thing is we go in and we've taught hundreds, if not thousands, of managers and leaders, and nobody does this. It's just surprising. And then I think the second thing that I would tell the audience is, to get better in communication is you really have to recognize that people can only take communication in 1 of 2 ways. They can either take it as an opportunity or as a threat. There's no middle ground. And if you're listening to me or you're communicating something, you have to ask yourself, how is this being taken? Particularly when you're delivering really, really difficult messages, you still want them to take it as an opportunity. And the more you can do that, the better kind of leadership score that you'll have. So if you can just do those 2 things, and there's a whole suite of other things that we teach, but those are 2 big ones that we rarely see managers do. And the better managers do end up doing some of those.
Yeah, just thank you for sharing that. I love that you mentioned pace too, because that's something that kind of in my mind I was like, oh shoot, that actually makes sense now that I think about it. But I'll admit I have done at times. I'll go in and be like, hey, like kind of that micromanaging, like, hey, is this done right? And you're constantly worried when in reality you just need to set the expectations and then check in on those expectations. And I mean, it saves you, I guess, a lot of stress.
It does. Well, and it saves the individual a lot of stress as well. And other thing I'll mention is when you're establishing the pace, what you want to be able to say is to the individual. So if I was requesting this report from you, I would say is, okay, worst case scenario, how long would it take you to, develop that report for the first region? And you would say, man, that's usually about, 40 hours worth of work, right? So what I want to do is I'd make sure I put the pace in there, where if everything goes completely wrong, you get dragged off into another project or you do it incorrectly or something changes, is that, if it's due at the end of the month, what I would do is I would pull it back a week and say, hey, we're going to do this on week 3 of 4. And that way, if everything's wrong, then we're going to pull you off the other projects so you have time to recuperate. And I think one of the challenges that we don't do is we set the deadlines or the pace um, in a way that, it shows up at the last day of the month and it's just completely wrong. And there's 40 hours of work to do and you've got 10 hours to do it. And everybody's scrambling and so forth. So anyway, so make sure when you set the pace that there's enough recovery time built into that so that the individual can be successful and you can be successful as well.
And that's what we both like. That's what we want, is for both to thrive and kind of going into that positive. We want both of us to thrive and not be stressed and anxious and all that. That was actually one of the questions in the test, believe it or not, right? It's rate yourself on how stressed, anxious, and all that, and how far you would be. And then, if you severely disagree, like on the other end. And maybe that's probably why I tested low in that. But so I guess let's dive into how you kind of came into developing your own thing to kind of help these leaders and around that test and all that.
Sure. So I'll talk about two assessments. So we don't call them tests, right? Because tests are one of the things that you learn in research when you're doing research stuff is tests have right and wrong answers. So there's no right or wrong answer. Yeah. So when I did my doctoral research over 20 years ago, what I wanted to find out was I really wanted to see, was there a relationship between the type of tasks that we do, motivation, engagement, and the concept of flow or getting in the zone. So I had to develop for the dissertation, I had to develop an assessment, which ultimately became what's known as the Task Quotient Assessment. And I think I'm going to give you a link to that at the end.
Oh, yes, I have also taken that.
Yeah, and you'll be able to, you or anybody listening till the end, we'll give it away at the end. You'll be able to take the assessment where you won't have to pay for it, right? Because normally there's a fee for that. But I'm going to give it away to all of your listeners for free. And what I found was when I was managing, I have very, very, very similar people doing similar work. And I would walk into my one staff member and he or she would say, "Boy, I love working on task A, but I hate B and C." And the next one would say, "Hey, I like working on B, but A and C don't work." The last one would say, "I like working on C, but A and B don't work." And I thought, boy, they're very similar personalities, similar background, similar education, experience. What the hell's going on? What I recognized was there was some work that was done by a gentleman by the name of Bill Daniels from American Training and Consulting. And what Bill found out was there's really three types of tasks that we do. There's routine tasks, are very kind of methodical, cranking through email, very predictable. And you pretty much have to do it in the moment, right? So those email is usually a good example of that. So you have a routine task. You have a troubleshooting task or problem-solving task, which have to get done in the moment, but they are unpredictable, right? So you don't know when they're going to come in, like the machine shuts down or the gardeners show up next door, right? And you have to be able to deal with it in real time. And then the third type of task that we do is project work or kind of long-term strategic work. Very predictable, doesn't have to be done in the moment. Like working on your taxes, you have to put all the things together. And then when it's done, it's, you feel really good about it. But the key for me was that what I found is there's actually, if I can determine your ideal mixture of those three tasks, I can, statistically, I'd proven you can raise the person's job satisfaction, their motivation, their engagement. And then we also extended the work from another doctoral student. She did her dissertation on mine, that it actually raises the level of empowerment of how much we feel in control. And there are 496 different mixtures of this. And the assessment will tell you your ideal mixture. And then the key is to structure your day in a way that allows you to get that kind of balance, right? So for me, as an example, I like about 50% project work. I like about 30% troubleshooting work, and routine I can handle about 20%. And there's a certain cadence I can do routine work for about 20 or 30 minutes. Troubleshooting usually is an hour and 15, hour and 30, and project work right around 2 hours. I get these little red flags in my head that, I want to go get something to drink or something to eat, or I want to go back and answer some email or make a phone call. Those are the triggers, right? Those are the triggers that are kind of in you that are defining your cadence. And once you know the triggers, the key is to move from one type of task to another. And what happens typically is, I don't know if this happened with you, but one of the common stories is, I remember being back in doing my undergraduate work, and I'd say, Friday, I'm locking myself in the dorm and I'm going to write that report for 8 hours and just sit down. It's all project work here, right? And then sure enough, after about 2 hours, you got to get up and walk around or go play foosball or get a drink or something. And what I recognize is that, we don't, because you get different levels of feedback from each of the tasks, we have everybody has different needs. So I wanted to prove that concept, which I was able to prove. If anybody wants to read my dissertation, I'd be glad to send it to you. It's outrageously boring, but it will give you all the statistics on how to do that. And I think that what I found is, so now when I work with executives in particular, I help them structure their days so they're not doing Friday of all one. They're doing the strategy on Friday, getting all the routine stuff done on Monday. That doesn't work because it just feels really too difficult. So we do is we structure it. So rather than having that 8-hour project that you're going to do on Friday, you do 2 hours each day for 4 days, right? It's just that easy. And then the other thing it does is it kind of plants it into your memory. So when you're not working on it, your subconscious is off doing that, right? And if you can get that discipline and know when you can do some things, like Monday mornings, of course, are always the time where everything's hitting the fan. So that's the troubleshooting time. So like the first 2 or 3 hours in Monday mornings, I don't block anything off because there's a problem with the website or clients can't get into your assessments, or hey, this didn't print properly. Can you send me new files? So I know the troubleshooting is going to come in there. And by the way, if it doesn't come in there, there's all these projects of stuff I have to fix that I can feed and do that. And then at the end of each day and end of each week, I get significantly more work done. But more importantly, I feel really good about it. I'm exhausted and I want to do more of it, right? And that's the key. And that's the reason I developed that assessment that's distributed by Target Training International. They've been distributing it for over 15 years now. And hopefully it'll be valuable once you know that and you can do the structure. The one thing I will say, Josh, to the viewers are, like, if you're like working in a machine shop on the line or manufacturing where you're putting door handles on cars or doing lathes where you have to create 1,000 pieces per hour, and that's all you're doing, the task quotient is probably not going to be of a ton of help. But if you have the ability where you have a variety of stuff that you have to do, they're going to fall into the different categories. Just doing a little bit of structuring the beginning of the week or in the beginning of the day gives you the ability at the end of the day, one, to get more stuff done, but more importantly, at the end of the day, you're going to you'll feel exhausted, and at the same time, you're going to want to come back and do it again.
Yeah. I will say this. So like when you're on, like, let's say the production floor or something, wouldn't that fall under routine? Because you're doing repetitive tasks over and over.
Yeah, typically it is. It just depends, right? A lot of times, particularly if you're on a production floor where you're making some things that are custom, right? You have to tweak some things and with the machinery or do something special, and it takes some degree of artisan work. That could get into a troubleshooting or even a project type of thing. But most of the time, as you've said, it's mostly routine work as the kind of the cranking of the things and getting the widgets to come out the other end.
Interesting. Thank you for explaining it. Because when I took it, I'll just share my results. I think it was 29% troubleshooting, 27
routine,
27 routine, and then the remainder I think is like 40
40 something
percent. Yeah, somewhere around there was project based as well. And initially when I saw that, I was like, that's interesting, because I always thought I was more of a routine person. But as I started thinking about it more, I was like, that's true. I do like a big project to kind of think about, work about, and then kind of put processes and plans into place where I can ensure that it works. And then there's the routine stuff. I'm like, I tend to avoid that at times. I'm like, that's.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I keep it to a minute. Is I had an individual when I was doing my doctoral work. She worked for me, a guy by the name of Nathan. And when I was developing assessment, for the dissertation back in 2000, Nathan came to me, took it, and he said, I don't buy into any of this crap. It's like, if you just let me do project work all the time, I'd be the happiest guy. All this troubleshooting and routine stuff drives me crazy. So I said, okay, let's do an experiment. I'm going to book a conference room for you for 1 week. There's this big project. I know it's about 80 hours. It's going to take you 2 weeks to work on it. I'm going to book the conference room, no phones. We're going to move all your customer communications off to other people on the team. We're going to do this for 1 week, right? And then we're going to lock you in the room. By the way, you get no access to email or anything else. You're just going to work on the project. And we planned for it, about, probably 2 or 3 weeks out. He was like incredibly excited, booked the conference room. And then we put him in the conference room and he said, see you on Friday. And then my question to you and maybe to the audience is, how long do you think Nathan lasted before he went crazy?
3 days, maybe?
Monday afternoon, about 2:00. He had been in the room for, I think he had worked on the project for 6 hours. And he realized, like, oh my God, I've got like another, 30 hours or 35 hours. I'm going to have to be doing this. And I just remember him coming to my office and he goes, okay, you got me. Like, can I just go back and I just want to do some email and make a call, right? Can I do that? Right. So, and even though it seems like, particularly as you get up to higher levels in an organization, as a senior manager, you think, well, you shouldn't be doing any routine work or shouldn't be doing any problem solving. The problem is each one of those has a different degree of feedback or reinforcement for us, right? The routine work, you get lots of really small amount of reinforcement, but you get a good quantity of it, right? Oh, I got deleted 20 emails, right? That's great. Or I answered 10 emails. So that's a certain level of feedback. Troubleshooting is like a medium level of feedback, right? When you finally figure out, the computer hasn't worked for a day, and now I finally figure out what happened. I need to plug it in, or the mouse is plugged into the wrong port, whatever it is, and it's working. Like that's on the next level. And then when the project work is done, where you're like Nathan's project, where you'd be working on that, and you finally deliver it to the client. That's a whole different level. But the thing is it's the frequency of feedback and it's the intensity of the feedback. Routine, you get lots of frequency, low intensity. Troubleshooting, medium frequency, medium intensity. And the project work is low degree of feedback, high intensity, right? So the key is each one of us has a different need for that different type of feedback. And it needs to come in a certain cadence to kind of keep it's like a bicycle wheel. You just touch it just a little bit, you can keep it spinning almost forever with little effort. The problem is what we try to do is we try to do all of the one thing at one time, and it just doesn't work. So this is a way that we know, and I think we've run a little over 10,000 of these assessments, and they all keep coming telling us the same thing.
If one thing, that shows that it works, right? So that you're right. So how do you go about, I guess, like, let's say structuring a day for someone, like when they come to you with their results, how would you go about structuring their day?
Super simple. What you do is you track a week of where your time goes. I can send you the tracking sheet, just real simple sheet. Just track the work that you've done, right? And then when you don't have to determine which category it goes into. And then at the end, just say, overall, I spent 17 hours doing emails or whatever. And emails are a little bit unique because sometimes some are routine emails. Some were like the emails that have a deep dive. Here's a problem to solve. Can you do that? That's more troubleshooting. And some of them are big project kind of things. So you can't just lump them into a certain category. But the key is you track your information, you figure out, how much you have, and then you look at your assessment that says, if you need 47% project work, of those, how many hours are you getting project work? And then the key is to be able to figure out if you have the ability to have a communication with your boss to say, hey, I need more of this and less of this and so forth. And then there's a whole long process that I can't get into today on how do you identify them, how do you delegate them, how do you divide them, how you delete them. There's a whole very sequenced way to do that. But the other thing is you track your tasks, and then you also want to track your cadence, right? Because everybody's cadence is a little bit differently. So like my business partner, he can work on project stuff, probably 3 to 4 hours, and he can stay in the zone or in flow. For me, mine starts kicking out about 2 hours, right? So he can structure his days into up to 3 and 4 hour chunks, and I have to do mine in 2 hours. So once you kind of understand that cadence, and the cadence is, when your brain starts thinking of different things, that's the trigger that you need to change the task. It's just that easy. Just that easy.
Yeah. Well, easier said than done, right? It's the application that's the hardest part.
It is. And that's why you need a coach or a mentor or a buddy to hold you accountable, right? When we do this, we always do it in what we call peer coaching, or rather than accountability, we call them capability partners, or two people work together so that you're accountable to each other. And we do know that when you're accountable to someone else, that you're more likely to do the work than if you're just accountable to yourself.
It's true. Well, thank you, Kevin, for coming on today. I appreciate the knowledge you shared. We've talked about a lot of the work you've done. You mentioned the free assessment that the listeners can take. What's the best way they can go to that? And then also, what's the best way they can find you, reach out to you, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so if you go to magnaleader.co, not com, right? So www.magnaleader.co/, and you have to type this all in caps, GIFT. It's a gift for you, Josh, and the listeners. GIFT. It'll take you to the Task Quotient Assessment, and you can take that for free. The one thing that we haven't talked about, and I also want to make sure that the readers can get to it, is the positive intelligence assessment, right? You've taken that. A lot of people have taken it. I think over 100,000 people have taken it. Those are free. Those are free as well. I've been a positive intelligence coach for the last 3 years. Absolutely fantastic. People that like to learn about emotional intelligence. I think Shirzad Shamin, who's the author of Positive Intelligence, has done a great job of taking a very complex topic and making it easy. If you go to my site, it'll give you a quick start guide, so you don't have to dig through and try to find the assessments. And if you go to pqtrainingandcoaching.com, PQ is the positive intelligence, pqtrainingandcoaching.com, you'll get a little pop-up. Sign up for that. I'm not going to spam you or anything. And it'll send you a quick start guide. So you can prescriptively go through everything without having kind of dig and try to find the assessments, because his site is excellent. You have to dig through it a little bit to find them, and this will help you navigate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate just everything you shared today. And I know the listeners got a lot of value, and I know I did as well. So thank you.
It's been my pleasure. And anyone wants to contact me, kevin@magnaleadership.com. My promise to you is you send me an email, you want to set up some time, I will answer any questions you have, and 100% no sales pitch. I'm not going to do any sales pitch for you, right? So I just would like to be helpful, and that's kind of my function in life.
That's awesome. It's a good way to live. Well, thank you for coming on.
All right, my pleasure, Josh. Take care.
All right, everyone. As you can tell, that is Dr. Kevin Gazzara. He's a very intelligent person, has great things to share. I challenge you guys, if anything spoke to you, to reach out to him. He shared his information there for you. Also, if you're interested in the free gift that he is giving to you, I would challenge you to seriously take action on that, because awareness is where you can make better decisions and improve your life wherever it may be. Stay tuned till next week. We have a great guest lined up for you guys. See you guys next week, and let's get after it. Hey everyone, if you liked this episode and would like to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button. We release a new episode every Wednesday for you guys to listen to. Thank you guys so much for the support that you give. We could not have done this without you guys. If you would like to be a potential guest on the show, check out intelligentconvos.com and fill out the form there. Thank you guys again, and let's get after it.